I recently had someone make a Facebook post on one of my comments claiming that Americans were just lazy these days and wanted a handout all the time. It is a typical Republican belief that poor people are just lazy. Until the economy collapsed, I kind of believed them. I also used to ascribe to the idea that overweight people were just lazy until I began having my own weight issues. It's amazing how you can think like this if it has never happened to you. The mindset is, if we remove things like welfare and unemployment, it will motivate people to find work. That's a very old and intuitive mindset, but science and data tends to be counterintuitive to what we perceive. So the question is, are Americans lazy? Labor studies is extremely well studied, mostly in the European sector, but it's not really well known or well explained to most of the people of the United States. Let's look at the kinds of work that exists. There is tangible labor, intangible labor, wasted labor, and gambler's labor. Tangible labor is the kind you see the results from and get instant gratification. The results are there, the reward is there. You clean something and it looks nice. You pick a fruit, you eat it. You build something and you see the results. Then there's intangible labor. This is what most of us do. We're cogs of the machine, doing parts that we will never see the finished product of, or we have to wait months before we see what we get. Then there's wasted labor. We all know about this. When our inefficiency is so high, we can see all of our efforts going down the drain. There's also gambler's labor. This comes in two types, positive and negative. Positive gambling labor is when you aren't sure if your work is going to pay off, but the probability or perception of probability is fairly high. Also, the chances of serious negative consequences should you fail is low. An example of this is that Google gives their workers time to work on their own side projects. There is no negative repercussion so long as some work is actually shown to have been done. And they get bonuses if they come up with winning programs. Most of their best programs have come from this kind of freedom and autonomy brainstorming, and the workers work harder and feel great about their jobs. Negative type is where you put a ton of work in and it has a high probability of being wasted. And an example of this is job hunting in a bad economy. You work and work and work and work with little chance of getting payoff. Of course, even worse is the financial problems that occur, so the stress makes you worse at interviews, dropping your possibilities of getting hired even more. Starting your own business is like a combo of positive and negative gambler's labor. 60% of new jobs in the past 30 years in the U.S. were created by small business ventures, which is why governments have and should try and reduce the negative stress of small business owners. A study was done where people were given Legos and told to build robots with them to their heart's content. The first group was allowed to keep their Legos in plain sight and admire their work. They made quite a lot and had fun. The next group had the finished projects taken off the table and out of sight. These people enjoyed their labor significantly less than the previous group and ended their robot build sooner than the first group. The last group had their robots disassembled right in front of them. These people had little interest in making more than a few robots. It would be interesting to figure out how someone with a simulated jobless situation in a recession could get inserted into this experiment. Kind of like take a dice, and if you get the right number, you get to keep the robot. But if you don't get a robot in a certain period of time, you get tasered. The tasering simulates things like having foreclosure. After the tasering, simulating being jobless for too long, your chances of being hired drop more, so your odds are decreased even more, and the tasering occurs again sooner. Because North European governments actually understand this from the science of labor studies as opposed to much of America, unions, job placement services, jobless entitlements, and welfare are very important to them. If there are no jobs, then removing your jobless benefits actually increases your stress level, making you more desperate and even more likely to mess up when applying for a job. It's the calm, confident, and relaxed people that get hired, not those who are panicked and feel like their very lives hang on getting this job. It also reduces customer spending, ensuring that further jobs won't be created, as demand will be extra slow to increase. I'm currently finishing up Robert Sapolsky's book, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, and holy crap, does long-term massive stress have major impact on every aspect of your life. It shortens your life, shrinks your hippocampus, increases insomnia, which causes further stress, atrophies neuron connections, increases your weight, increases your chance of debilitating depression, and more. Is it any wonder that North Europeans spend half as much in medical costs and live longer? And that we have massive heart attack rates in the US? The rich used to believe that they were so much greater than poor people because of breeding. The only thing they had up on the poor people is that they had better education and much lower stress. In rhesus monkeys, the bottom monkey in the hierarchy has such high levels of stress that ulcers develop and the monkey can't become fertile. Being born poor is the best way to ensure you will stay poor, not for the lack of working hard. Most work their asses off, contrary to Republican propaganda. The stress and lower quality of education ensures that most of them will not have the time and breathing space to self-reflect much. Welfare is meant to give them a leg up in this area. Is it perfect? Far from it, but it's better than nothing.